You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers about hikers for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, it's good to be back with you all. You're listening to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis, and I'm your host, Steve Adams, or the aforementioned Mighty Blue. If I sound like I'm in a bit of a rush this week, it's because I am. I'm trying to get 2 shows completed this week, one for this Thursday, which you should be listening to now, then another for next week while I'm away on the first 30 or 40 miles of the Appalachian Trail. It'll be the first time I've hiked the approach trail in 10 years, since my first ever hike, my 2014 thru-hike. The plan is to basically lollygag to Hill Gap in about 5 days, then head home. If any of you are out there next week, look for an old geezer huffing and puffing uphill. Don't forget to say hi as you breeze right past him. This week we've got a lady who is in that lovely honeymoon stage of completing an AT thru-hike. Georgetta Frederick, or Trail Mama, finished the trail on August the 6th, and of course all her friends are still delighted that she's sharing her stories with them. Well, today she's sharing them with us, and I think you're going to be impressed with her common sense and attitude. Georgetta will be along in a moment. After Georgetta, 2 of our Mighty Blue class of 2024 are back with us. I interviewed all 5 this week, so 3 will be on next week, and today we hear from Michael Gaasch and the somewhat elusive Anita Gschwendtner. Those 2 will be on after Trail Mama. Then, of course, we'll have Emily Leonard's Happy Hiking, where I'm going to split her Smokies chapter into 2. The first half this week and the second half next week. So let's get to it and meet Georgetta Frederick, or Trail Mama. So we've got a real overachiever on the podcast today. This is Georgetta Frederick, or Trail Mama. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Georgetta.
You're welcome.
Now I'm going to talk about you being an overachiever in a moment, but first, how long have you actually been hiking?
Since 2017. So what is that, 7 years?
And what form, how'd you get into it?
Well, I just learned about it, and there's a local trail near me called the John P. Saylor Trail, and I just wanted to test out the waters a little bit. There's a 5-mile loop out there, and so I went and tried that one day, figuring the worst that could happen would be I couldn't do it, and I'd turn around and go back. Yeah. But I did it, and that was it.
It's a good feeling of achievement, isn't it, when you complete a hike?
Right, absolutely.
And what was it doing for you? Was it a solitude thing for you, or was it just getting out into nature?
Just getting out into nature really was the big thing at first. I really wanted to do it with people, but at that time I didn't know that many people who did outdoor things. So I just decided to go. And later I found people.
Yeah.
But at the beginning was just kind of just to get out into nature and see what was out there.
And when did the AT actually come onto your radar? Because it isn't for everybody, this hike, obviously, but we hear about something and it sounds pretty magical in certain ways. But then when you actually face what it is, a 2.5 hour or 2,200 mile hike, it's quite a daunting task. So what actually put the AT on your radar?
When I got into hiking and backpacking, I began listening to books and talking to people. And one of my friends, Kip, had done the majority of the AT like 20 years ago. Right. And so he had told me about it, and then I started reading books and just learning as much as I could about it. That was probably in either 2018 or 2019. Mm-hmm. And I was on fire for it, but I couldn't go yet. I couldn't go because of my circumstances at the time. So the goal was 2024. And that was just kind of, and it was so far away, right? It was like, back in 2018, 2024, It's like so far away. So I did just continue to learn about it and research to a degree what it would take to accomplish something like this. And yeah, and then it's here.
Yeah, it is, and it's gone now. You've done it, so it's quite amazing how it comes and then it passes and then it starts receding in the background. Why did it take 6 years after you thought about it to actually go there?
So I'm actually a single parent. I have two daughters, Carla, who is 23, and Kaylee, who is 19.
All right.
And so they were just, my primary responsibility. And so I had to wait until my youngest was old enough that I could leave.
Yeah, you couldn't leave Kaylee at the age of 13 and just go off for a couple of months, could you?
No.
And you're in your early 40s, you told me. So I'm not giving anything away that you haven't already told me. So why was this particularly a good time of your life to take on this long hike? Because, right, yes, your daughters are now of an age when they can kind of look after themselves, but it isn't always easy for all of us to take, a period of time out of our lives. Why was this a good time for you?
Well, it was on many, many reasons. One of the biggest would be, we're not promised tomorrow, right?
Sure.
And you don't know what's going to happen. And at my work, I clean houses is my main job. And so some of the people that I work for are older people. Mm-hmm. And also, I've just been around older people. And sometimes what happens when you get to the retirement age is you're not really physically able to maybe do some of the things you wanted to do in your life. And so, that was one of the reasons I didn't want to wait, because you don't know what's going to happen. I try to take good care of myself, but you just never know. So I just decided the time is right, and I'm going to take it. And,
I'd be interested, though, you must have told your clients, these older people, you say, that you were leaving. Did they encourage you to do it, or did they say, who's going to clean my bloody house?
No. Most everyone was excited for me, I suppose. So how I approached that was I did talk to all of my clients in January and let them know that I was going to be doing this. I also offered to find a replacement for them while I was going to be away. And some of them did want a replacement and some of them did not. And I also explained that I understand that it would be a possibility that they would find someone else while I was gone, and that was just a risk I was willing to take because I needed to do this. But most everyone was very supportive and encouraging and go have fun. My one lady, I have a few ladies who are in their 90s, and
wow.
one of my ladies, she kind of thought I was going to a new job for a short time, and she was like, she was asking me about my new job, and it was. But she just didn't have the, back in the day when my clients, my ladies who were in their 90s, they probably couldn't imagine being a female going out and doing something like this.
Sure, sure.
And so it's probably kind of hard to understand for some people, but things are changing and, everybody was pretty supportive.
And now you're back. Did you go back to work for all your ladies, or did you lose a couple of the gigs?
Oh, no. I went back to work for almost everybody. There was a couple of people that, one person I did not go back to work for. That was my choice. And another person decided that I wasn't going to continue to clean for them. But otherwise, all of my other clients are still with me. And I actually picked up about 3 more since then. So
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
you're probably now a bit of a local celebrity for doing that.
I guess.
Now, when I referred to you earlier as a bit of an overachiever, I'm really not kidding. You recently completed the 80 in 98 days. What were you in a rush for? And were you in a rush?
I would say yes, I was in a rush on some level. So I wanted to see what I could do. I wanted to see if I could do it. I knew it was going to be a hard challenge. I do enjoy challenging myself in ways. I've done other shorter challenges in the past. And so this was just a whole new, great, big thing I wanted to try and see if I could accomplish. And so I did. Woo! That was one of the reasons. And another reason is financial, because all the time that I'm on the trail, I'm not working and I'm not earning money.
Sure.
And I still have a house, I have bills to pay. So, finances.
I don't want to dig too much into your finances and be personal stuff like that, but did you meet quite a tight budget when you were on trail? Did you feel the need to keep to quite a tight budget? And was it quite easy to do that?
I would say I didn't keep a super tight budget, but I'm going to also say maybe I did. Actually, just this morning I was figuring out how much money I spent while I was on trail.
Yeah.
And so the total amount was of money that I spent was $3,685.
That's not a lot, really, for
No,
what
it's
you
not.
for what you got in terms of things out of the trail. Because they used to say, even when I first went, $1,000 a month.
Right.
You were out there for 3 months, just over 3 months, and you only spent $1,200 a month. So, what did you do? Did you tend to stay in the woods most of the time, or did you go into town quite a bit?
I did stay in the woods most of the time, and I actually prepared food and had boxes shipped and stuff, so I didn't have to buy like my main meals either, except for like if I was in town and I was getting, town food. So I made my breakfast and I made my dinner. And also I had a lot of trail magic from my friends. I
Nice.
had friends kind of all along the way, and I stayed.
That's handy. That's really
it
handy.
was awesome. It was so awesome. There were actually the number of people who came onto the trail to help me, just me, was 29. Wow. And so
That's quite something.
different people did different things, but some of the people actually like picked me up and took me to their house and let me stay at their house. So like right there, I didn't have to spend money on a hostel or
Sure.
a hotel, and they bought me food, and so that kept my expenses down as well, that they helped me in that way. It was just so awesome.
And you're at that stage where people are still interested in your stories, because everybody knows. I say you've got about 3 weeks to tell everyone your stories once you're finished, because they don't understand what you've done really after it. So when you were being picked up in the middle of the trail, they loved hearing what was going on. Were they inspired by what you were doing, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. Yeah. Like it was just, that's what everybody said anyway. And they just were like, just so happy to be part of it, to be part of the journey. And it was just, that was so mind blowing to me, because one of my biggest struggles on the trail was actually being lonely and being by myself, because of the mileage that I was doing. And I would be camping and alongside the trail sometimes, so I wouldn't be around people at camp. One of my very biggest struggles was loneliness. And so having my friends come out sometimes, and I didn't ask them to, they just offered. And so it was just amazing. It was so amazing.
It's lovely how people feel what we've been doing is something quite out of the ordinary, which it really is as well, and they want to support it. And you find your true friends when you're out there as well. And your dates, you actually were May the 1st. You originally planned to do it to finish July the 31st, which would have been just 3 months, but you slipped a little bit and got down to August the 6th. Were you happy to let that plan slip? Because, it's quite an achievement to do it in 98 days. You were trying to do it in about 90 days. Were you quite happy at the end to leave it a bit?
Yes, I am. I would have been slightly happier if I would have stayed on target. But when I first went out there, I knew that there was possibilities of things kind of happening. You can't, the trail, there's just so much unknown. There's so much we can't control, the weather and just many things. And, I didn't know how my body was going to react to things. So it was kind of just we're going to go with the flow thing, while staying on target as much as possible.
Yeah.
So, and actually my daughter and a friend of mine, Tracy from the gym, they actually did a little bit of fundraising for me, so that if I had to go over my time, that I would be able to financially do that. And that was super cool that they did that, and it was just a surprise. And it was just so I knew it was covered and it was okay if I needed to stay out there a little bit longer.
And you mentioned your daughter just now. What was what is your daughter's attitude towards mum spending several months in the woods? Were they quite comfortable with it, or did they feel she knows what she's doing?
Oh, they were super supportive and super happy and go get your dream, Mom. Go do this. They were just so supportive. They obviously they've been in my life, and so I've backpacked a lot over the years, and they've actually went with me a number of times, so they know that this is my passion. and they were just super supportive. They wanted to help in any and every way. My oldest daughter actually was the one who was in charge of mailing boxes to me, my resupply boxes.
Sure.
And she was always so cute. She'd call, and when it was really hot, there were some times when it was in the upper 90s and very humid, and she was like, could you use one of those ice bandanas, or could you use one of those spray bottles that have the fan, And so, like, I just thought that was super cool that she was trying to think of ways to help me, because she was going to send me things,
Yeah,
So
that is so cool. Get that support from her is important. And I know that you're a very active person anyway. What was your training regimen like to get prepared for the AT?
So for the last couple of years, I've been attending the gym. I go to CrossFit at least 5 times a week. Sometimes I go 6. It just depends on my week, whether or not I can do that. I run almost every day. I do 100 burpees every day. I do core work every day. And that's just kind of been my routine. I would backpack every weekend that I had available. And so in January, I really started trying to hit that pretty hard, and, wearing my pack that was heavy, because on a normal weekend trip, I don't take very much because I know what I need. So,
Sure,
I did try to up my weight so I could try to prepare my body a little bit for that. But it's so different going from 2 or 3 or 4 days to 90 something. It's just, how do you prepare for that?
Imagine what it's like 180.
Yeah.
Nightmare. So do you recommend training for a hike like this? I mean, I've always said, I don't know how anybody can prepare for this. I think just you get in hiking shape by hiking, for me anyway. But you felt prepared physically straight away, didn't you?
Oh, very much, yes. I think I did feel prepared for the task that I was intending to do. So I would recommend training, and even like if your training would be solely backpacking or solely hiking or just day hiking with your pack on, going to the gym maybe would be good too for people, especially if you're like working on your leg strength, because that's definitely a big thing.
Yeah.
So I would recommend training because it's very hard. It's hard. It's physically hard.
Yeah, you can't say that enough, can you? It really is physically hard. Yeah, it takes it out of you. And as you've already done quite a bit of hiking for this over this past 7 years, you obviously had the gear. Was your gear adequate for a through hike, or did you specifically have to change certain things, or do you pretty much go with what you had?
I did change in this year. I did change my backpack. I had been using a Gregory. And I was super happy with that. It has lasted for me for a long time, a number of years. But I decided to go with Hyperlight because right there, that one change saved me several pounds. And a pound is, as a pound is a pound, and that's a big deal. I also did decide to switch my sleeping bag. I carried a 45 degree the entire time. I didn't change that, but I got a down lightweight one, whereas before I had one that was synthetic. So those were the 2 things that I changed this year for my gear for this trip.
Changing out your backpack, my 2014 through hike, my Gregory pack, also a Gregory pack, was 5.5 pounds empty. And the pack I went with in 2019 was only 19 ounces. So that you save weight there straight away. So it's really worth thinking about it. Did the Hyperlight hold up well?
Yes, very happy with it. Very, very happy with it. I will use that again when I go. I will continue to use that pack, yes.
And I know that you were quite experienced by the time you started, because I see on your website it refers to Laurel Highlands hiking tours. What are the Laurel Highlands? Where are the Laurel Highlands, and how did the hiking tours come about?
So the Laurel Highlands hiking trail is a local hiking trail near me. It starts in Seward, Pennsylvania, and goes to Ohio, Pyle, Pennsylvania, and that is it's 70 miles. And
plenty of rocks.
There's some rocks. It's actually not that bad. There's parts that are rocky and there's parts that are not rocky. So I've heard it referred to before as a mini AT, a way mini AT.
Nice.
But anyway, that's the first trail I backpacked on, and I did that the very first time with my friend Michelle and my daughter Kaylee, and It was amazing. It was like, it was super amazing. And so it really just grew from there. And in 2019, I began taking friends out on this trail just as a thing to do. It was just introducing people to the trail, introducing people to nature. And it was, aside from this year, that was my favorite year of backpacking. And because I just introduced so many new people to it, and it was just awesome. It was such an awesome thing. So from that, I decided I was going to start a backpacking business, a backpack guiding business. And so last year, or 2020, obviously everything was crazy. And then just as things happened, I just ended up not doing it. I started it last year, and actually in the fall. And that's another reason actually I decided to do the AT this year, was because I really want to start delving into getting into this business. And I didn't want to, I don't want to go away for a summer while I'm doing good with my business. So.
Sure. And of course it steps up by being now a 98-day through hiker. That doesn't do any harm either. And I've noticed you haven't put that on your website yet. You might want to introduce that to your website.
Okay, I will do that.
And so you had the experience, you had the right gear, and you were physically prepared to go. How did you cope with the mental challenges of a through hike? Because you said you were quite lonely, and because of what you were doing, the miles you were doing, I suspect you spent a heck of a lot of time by yourself, didn't you?
Yes, I did. So out of the almost 2,200 miles, I would guess I probably hiked about 2,000 of them by myself. That's a lot of time. Yeah, you could drive yourself crazy by talking to yourself. Did you reflect upon things? Was it something that you enjoyed that time to reflect on life and what's happened to you? I did. I spent a lot of time thinking. And that was actually another reason I wanted to do the journey, was because I wanted to have time to process things that have happened in my life and understand myself and why I maybe would choose to do this or that, or be in this kind of relationship or whatever, things like that. And I did all of that, a lot of it. And I feel like I forgave people, within myself. I forgave myself. I began to understand things in a much different way. And it was just that aspect was wonderful. It was so hard though. There were times when, I was just crying. There was one day, it started raining and I just got so emotional, and I was actually sobbing and going on the trail, walking down the trail. And I was so glad nobody came the other way, because they probably would have been like, what's wrong with you, But it was just a processing thing that I was dealing with at that moment. And then it was freeing, right? It was just this calm after that. And so that was wonderful. That was so wonderful.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think all of us think we're going to go on a trail and sort out all the problems of life. I remember passing over the state line into Maine, thinking, "Oh my God, I've sorted nothing out at all." So I'm glad you can at least say you sorted some things out. And what did your hiking routine look like? Because the miles you had to be doing, you must have started really early and finished quite late. Was it the same every day?
For most days, yes. Most days I would get up about 4:30 and be on the trail around 5:30. It would actually vary a little bit if I were in town, if I had done a Nero or if I had zeroed or something. I would probably start a little bit later than that, because that's just how that worked out. But so I would start super early, and my pacing actually wasn't fast. Anytime I talk to people, they're like, and they would say, so, the questions on the trail when you meet people is, are you doing a through hike? Are you through hiking? And when the answer is yes, what day did you start? Those are the questions that we start to ask. And then I would tell people my starting date, and they're like, what? Did you mean March 1st? I'm like, no, I meant May 1st. And so, and then they're like, here you go in front of me. And I'm like, no, I don't go fast. I just go for a long time. So I would be hiking probably from 5. Typically, I would like to be finished by 7:30 in the evening. It just kind of would vary though. Probably the latest time I hiked until was 10:30 one time.
Oh,
and
God. And then got up at 4:30 next morning.
I did. Yes, I did.
Oh, dear.
But that
how
particular, that one day, I actually didn't start hiking until almost 9 a.m. because I had a package at a post office, and it was a Saturday, and they didn't open until 8:30.
Oh, you slacker.
Yeah.
So when we spoke the other day, you told me that you didn't regret the schedule, and I know you had to be there at a certain time, but you'd have preferred to have had more leniency, as you called it. Do you think that you missed out on some of the more communal parts of an AT hike? And if you did it again, if you had the time, you had that leniency, would you like it to be a 6-month hike?
Yes, I would like to have more time. Yes, I don't know that I'd want to do 6 months. But I would like to have more leniency, yes, in it. And I do feel like I probably missed out on the, just the experience of getting to see people and getting to know people with regularity. I didn't really get to experience that. I did see a few people a couple of times, and I always just loved it. I loved it, like when I got to see people and check in with them again. And I know that would have been an amazing aspect of the journey. It just, that wasn't part of this journey for me.
Wasn't your journey. That's right. Yeah, and we all have our own one, which is why this is episode number 448 of a show, and everybody's had a different story to tell. And we did talk the other day about a few encounters you had, but tell us about the time you were stealth camping beside the trail in your tent.
Oh, okay. All right. So I did stealth camp along the side of the trail quite a lot just because of how my mileages would work out and everything. So one day I was camping alongside the trail, actually right beside the trail. And on the trail, if somebody is hiking, you generally can't hear them unless they're purposely making noise, right?
Sure,
so it's clear of leaves at this time of year anyway, or if they're making noise with their trekking poles. But otherwise, you're not going to hear somebody walking in the leaves because there are no leaves on the trail.
Sure.
So probably it was about 10 o'clock, and I'm in my tent, like laying down, ready to go to sleep, and I hear something in the woods. I hear leaves rustling and branches breaking, so something's out there walking, and it's big enough to break the branches, right? And so like, what is this? So I used my trekking poles to hold up my tent, and so I just took my battery charger and pounded on my poles, and the noise stopped, and then it started again, and it was still coming closer. Oftentimes bears will run away when they hear noise.
Sure.
And so this noise kept coming closer, so I made the noise again. Again, it stopped, continued to come closer, made the noise again, it stopped, continued to come closer, and I'm like, oh no, what do I do? And so I thought, I'm gonna blow my whistle. So I found my whistle and I blew it, and it just kept coming closer and closer, and I'm like, oh no,
how close do you think it got?
I don't know. I don't want to even, I don't know. But it was.
How close did it sound then?
It sounded very close. It sounded very, very close. So, I just decided I couldn't stay there. So I just got up and packed up my tent and hiked on a couple more miles. I did not see anything. And by the time I got out of my tent, I didn't hear anything any further. So I don't know for sure what it was, but whatever it was big enough to break the branches and, make that kind of noise. And that was actually the first time I really felt freaked out about being by myself out there.
I bet. I think the first time you sleep in the woods by yourself, that alone is something that takes a bit of nerve to do. Did you do that quite early?
Oh, yeah. I did.
Good, mm-hmm. Good for you. Well, I say good for you. I mean, that takes some nerve to do. When you look at the woods and you're walking through it and it's dark as well, it's quite a thing to set yourself up right by the trail as well. I'm surprised you stayed quite close to the trail. And you did sustain quite a nasty injury for a thru-hiker, didn't you? Tell us what happened.
I broke my toe.
Well, that's not a great idea. So what happened?
So at the beginning of my hike in May, it actually rained more days than it didn't rain. So I had lots of rain. I was very concerned about getting trench foot. And so I was trying to do different things to figure out how to not get that. And so my feet had been wet for many days, and I decided that I was going to hike in my sandals, my camp shoes, which were
Sure.
zero sandals. They had good tread on the back. So the first day I did that about half a day. It was fine. Nothing happened. The following day, I came down into the knock, got some food, and headed up the mountain. And I was probably near the top and kicked the crap out of a rock. And I heard a pop, and yeah, I broke my toe. So I sat down and put my shoes on and started to hike a little more, and it was hurting, and decided to take some ibuprofen, and then just kept on going. So yeah.
How long did that last?
The toe pain probably was a couple of days. It actually didn't hurt that bad for that long. It did actually stay red for quite a while, and I got a little bit concerned of maybe infection or something, but it did eventually go away. So yeah.
How does it feel now? All right.
Oh yeah, it feels just great now.
And because you were on a fairly tight schedule, and to me, those last two states in New Hampshire and Maine are the best part of the trail. Were you able to enjoy those last two states, or were you always pushing to get done in time?
Well, New Hampshire, when I got into New Hampshire, it definitely, things changed there. So up to that point, I was really pushing my miles. I would say on average before there, my daily mileage would have been somewhere between 24 and 28 miles a day. And then when I hit New Hampshire and got into the White Mountains, things changed. Things really changed, and my mileage went way down. So like I started with 17s and 10s, and so there were parts of it I really enjoyed, and there were parts of it I didn't enjoy. Actually, my anxiety was it was sky high in New Hampshire because of the rocks. I was very concerned of getting hurt, and that was just in the back of my mind all the time. And I was just thinking, if I fell here and I fell off the side of this mountain, nobody would even know it, right?
There probably weren't many people as far north as you either. You must have been one of the early... What was your number when you finished, by the way?
225.
Oh, right. I'm surprised it was as low, relatively low as that. So, so you were hiking by yourself in New Hampshire, but were you enjoying it at all? Or was this becoming more of a chore?
I did enjoy the views, the sights, the different... I actually really loved, like, Franconia Ridge, getting up out of the trees and just seeing for so far.
Magic moment.
Yeah, it was just... So there was a lot of amazing parts in it, and my mileage, because I just decided that at that point I couldn't push. I couldn't do the 20-something mile days, and so in some aspects I did get to enjoy it more. And actually in through there is where I got to start seeing some of the same people for a couple days and stuff. So that was pretty cool too. So I would say I did enjoy it, except for the anxiety that I had about what I was doing. All right.
But of course, all that anxiety goes away once you get to Baxter and you're climbing Coton. You know you're there. You know you're going to do it, and so on. Tell us about that day.
Oh my gosh, that day was just phenomenal. The anxiety actually really calmed down after the White Mountains.
All right. Okay.
So anyway, Mount Katahdin Day. I was camped at A-Ball Bridge at the campground there, and my friends Chris and Peyton were with me. So I hiked on the AT to Baxter State Park, and they hiked on the Blueberry Ledges to Baxter State Park.
Mm-hmm.
And we headed up the mountain, and they met me probably about 2 miles from the summit, and it was a gorgeous day. It was gorgeous. There was just fluffy white clouds, and you could see the blue sky, and it wasn't socked in at all. The temperature was in the 70s, just a little bit of wind. It was just like perfect. It was just the perfect summit day. And just climbing up there were so many people. That was the most people I saw on the entire trail was on that day.
I'm sure.
Like climbing up that mountain and climbing down, and it was just getting up there. It was just so amazing, and you can see it for a while. And then I saw a guy who I met a few times, and he's like, "You're so fast." I'm like, "You're here with me." So, like, you're so fast too, But anyway.
With all those people, by the way, at the top, they tend to step back to let the through hikers have their moment, don't they?
Oh yeah.
And you get this feeling that they have quite a bit of respect for people who've done this trip for so long. So, and those last few moments as you go to touch the sign, what was that moment when you touched the sign like?
It was just this this moment, this thing I've been chasing, kind of, right?
Sure,
like this
sure.
thing I've been thinking about, and I never knew for sure if I could do it, if I could get there. Can I get there? Can I do this? And I was just so happy. I was so happy to be there, and to be there in that moment, and to have a couple of friends with me as well was just super huge.
Sure.
Because of all of the loneliness I experienced along the way. And I climbed up on that sign, which, by the way, was super high. I felt like I had to put my foot up by my head to get on there, but that isn't totally true, but it was super high. Got up there, and I was like, yeah, I did it. And I was like, hey, all you people. I just thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail, and like, everybody kind of like was in their own little world, and they all turned around and were like clapping and yay and whatever. So it's just like creating my own energy, which was super awesome. I don't know, but just because it was such an awesome day, and it was just phenomenal.
Were you glad it was over?
Well, at that moment, it didn't feel over.
Of course, you had to come down again, didn't you? Yeah,
right. You got to go down, and like the next morning, was on my way home, and it's 5 o'clock, and it's like, I should be on the trail right now. Right? That's where I should be. That's what I've been doing every day.
That is an odd thing, isn't it? It's an odd thing.
Right. And I'm sitting in a car, like, so like it's been like the transition to come back home has been good. Like, because everybody's excited, and I'm excited to see all my friends and all of that jazz, and it's still all the excitement and everything.
Sure.
So it's not mundane yet, but I do miss it. I miss it so much already. I love being outside, and in my normal life, I can't be outside all the time. And so I definitely miss it. And I
know you've got ambitions to do other long hikes as well. Are you going to do the Triple Crown?
I hope so. Yes, I hope
so. So the plan is to work until you've got enough money to do the next one. Is it going to be a couple of years' time or not?
Probably. I'm hoping like within 2 years I can do the PCT. I'm hoping.
So, I mean, I'm sure people are going to be inspired by this story of somebody, who's done this in such a short period of time. If people wanted to get involved in your hikes or live in Pennsylvania, what should they do? Just go to your website?
Yeah, that would be the simplest way, or check out Facebook. I also is another way to get a hold of me.
Okay, well, I'll put the links in the show notes anyway. But just while we're talking about it, your website is it Trail Mama Hikes?
Yes.
TrailMamaHikes.com. Okay, well, I'll put the links in the show notes. But thank you for coming on and sharing your story. It's pretty inspirational stuff, and I'm incredibly impressed that you've done it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me and for communicating and sharing my story. And thank you for what you do.
Pleasure. Thanks a lot. Take it easy, okay?
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
I thought she was a great example of a person who knew what she wanted to do, worked out how to do it and afford it, and then got on with it. As I said, it used to be that $1,000 a month was a reasonable number to budget, but I think the fact that Georgetta was able to do it for $1,200 a month, and the whole trail, remember, so in just 3 months, shows that money needn't be too much of an impediment if you're able to live most of the time on trail. And I thought she wore a passion for backpacking. If you're interested in going on one of her guided hikes, you should check out her website, Trail Mama Hikes, the link of which will be in the show notes. I suppose that it's because it has been less than 3 weeks that her joy at her summit day was palpable and fresh. We have many people express a certain flatness in the reactions at the top, but Georgetta was still living it as we spoke. Now let's catch up with Anita Gschwendtner, or Moxie, who we haven't heard from for several weeks.
Hello?
Hey Anita, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Steve?
Well, I'm fine. This is the first time we've spoken, I think, for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm wondering where actually are you right now?
I passed the 2000 mark, so
Wow, that's exciting.
yeah,
That's exciting. So the
yeah.
last time we spoke, you were talking about heat exhaustion on the trail and a trail angel helping you and so on. I can't remember actually where you were, so I don't think you weren't even in New Hampshire at the time. So how's New Hampshire been for you?
New Hampshire was great. Sadly, though, we had a couple bad storms, so we kind of had to wait before we could, do the presidentials and stuff. So we kind of had to do a couple shorter days, which wasn't great. But
What do you call shorter days? Because shorter days are the thing in Whites.
well, we had to do like 10 miles instead of like 15 or 17 miles.
Wow. Okay. Well, I remember doing 11 miles in 11 hours, thinking, oh, we've done great. So
Yeah,
obviously you're
well,
a bit fitter than we were.
we were moving along pretty good. Like Franconia Ridge, we did quite a bit that day. I think it was like 15 or 16 that day, but we had a beautiful day. And then
Talk us through
we
it. Talk us
camped
through it. Talk. I often say on the show how beautiful that place is. So tell us your impressions of Franconia region, how it revealed itself to you.
It was just, the day was just perfect. Like you couldn't ask for a better day. A nice cool breeze. The sun was out, some nice puffy clouds, but you could just see the ridges, like where you were hiking and like where you had hiked. So it was kind of cool just to be able to see like where you're going and where you came from. And then you just sit up on the ridges and it was just, you could see, all the mountains around you it was just amazing. It was just such a perfect day.
And having that perfect day, where did you camp that night? 'Cause I remember we had a problem finding a camping spot after, is it Lafayette, the last one?
We ended up having to go to Gaasch
Okay, right.
shelter, which kind of stunk because it was like 0.6 or 7 off the trail. So
Yeah, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that, do they? 0.6 off the trail, what a nightmare.
yeah, we really didn't want to do that because it was already a long day. But we couldn't find any self sites at the time, so we kind of just had to go for it.
Yeah, it's funny actually. I've heard people say to me, written to me, say, they've said, they can't believe it's sometimes not possible to find a stealth site, and yet there are lots of the trail you just can't find anywhere to put your tent down, isn't there? Especially up there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, for sure. Yeah. There's a lot of places you can't just find a place. I mean, you're on a ridge or there's too many rocks or something.
Yeah. So you said that was great weather through Franconia Ridge. What about, first time I went, the presidentials was totally socked in. Second time it was fine. So what was the presidentials for you?
So we camped at Nauman, and so we were hoping to do the presidentials that next day. And we had Hurricane Debbie come through, I guess the remnants of it. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. So we kind of got a late start. We started the presidentials. It was all foggy. So we got through like Monroe and Eisenhower, and I'm missing one. We get up to Washington, still fogged in, and we get lunch. We go down to the hiker basement area, and just hang out there, and then come upstairs. And all of a sudden, it was beautiful.
Oh, lovely! You had a decent view at the top of Washington.
Yeah, so then the skies opened up, we got some sun, and so then the rest of the presidentials were really nice. So it ended up being a good day. Part of it was not so good, but the rest was beautiful. So
now I know you're quite close, or you're around people who were also following Sloggy and Professor Milkshake, somewhere near where you are as well. What was your experience when you go down Washington and then there's a hut down at the bottom of Madison, I remember, and then they climb up Madison, and then that awful climb down the Osgood Trail. How was that for you? Or was it dry for a start? That's important, if it's dry or not.
It was dry. Honestly, though, it's not very well marked. There was like the cairns and stuff around, but it just didn't have very many white blazes, and you'd get off going down the rocks, but oh my gosh, it was so rocky, so steep. and even just going down once you got off of Madison, going down to Osgood campsite, it was so slippery and muddy. I fell, I don't know how many times in the mud. It was, it was a crazy hike down for sure.
From my memory of that, I seem to remember there are certain spots, and it may not have been there, but I think it was there. Some of the path down is so steep, you're hanging onto the roots of a tree above you sometimes, which is kind of spooky, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah, actually, I feel like you have to do that a lot, especially here in Maine. And I felt like I had to do it a lot in New Hampshire, for sure.
And I know you. And I
a
know
lot of
you're
grabbing roots.
Yeah, all the time. And I know you're. It's only August, but I know it cools down at night in Maine quite often. How are you coping with not having your cooking system anymore? Because I know you were cold soaking last time.
Yeah, I still don't mind it, honestly. I've been cold soaking, and yeah, I mean, I'm usually very warm anyway, so the cold really hasn't bothered me too much. It's more when it rains and cold. But yeah, no, I've been cold soaking still. Still do ramen, Spanish rice, that kind of stuff, and yeah, I don't mind not having my stove.
I'm actually heading out there this week to the AT just for the first 30 odd miles and the approach trail. I'm definitely going to take my stove with me because I can't miss my morning coffee. Who are you hiking with?
Coffee.
Yeah, oh, totally. Yeah. Who are you hiking with?
I'm still with Jeff and Gazelle.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that going well?
We've been together since. Yeah. We've been together since Damascus, so quite a long time, and yeah, it's going well. It's nice to have them around if you're having a bad day, or something happens. It's nice to have somebody to talk to at the end of the day and vent or celebrate with. Like, we got pictures the other day when we got into Maine together. We're like, this is our last state together, so.
Yes. Tell us about crossing over from New Hampshire into Maine. That is definitely a moment where you think, oh my God, this is it. This is my last state. How did it feel to you? Did you feel grateful that you got there this far, or were you starting to get kind of sad that it's going to be over soon or relatively soon?
I've actually had a mix of both. I mean, like, it kind of wanted me to, I kind of felt like crying because I was like overjoyed that my body made it this far. Like, I was able to make it this far. But then in the same sense, I was like, oh my gosh, like 4.5 months, like I'm almost done. Like, this is crazy. Like, I've been doing this since April 15th. So part of me was really sad knowing that like it's coming to an end, honestly. So I really have mixed emotions.
Do you know what your life's going to look like after this trip?
I'm going to go back and see my kids, be with them for a while, my family, see some friends, and then I'll go back to work probably beginning of October or something.
Do you think you'll do long hikes in the future?
Yeah, I'm hoping to. I'm hoping to do the PCT maybe in 2026. So kind of on my radar. Right.
Now, you mentioned the music notch. How was that for you? Because I think it's one of those things that's quite important to hike with other people. So I'm glad you're with somebody when you went through it, because things could go wrong there and you could find yourself stuck somewhere for quite a while.
Yeah, you really could. I mean, that place was insane, but honestly, I had a really good time. It was fun. It was definitely a challenge. I kept my Far Out app open because you could go one way off trail a little bit, and because it wasn't necessarily marked the best sometimes, or sometimes you'd find white marks in caves, and it was just like, why are there white marks under there? No, it was a lot of fun. It was a beautiful day. That was my only good day I've had in Maine so far, was that day. So,
well, weather-wise, it's been bad. It's been bad the rest of the time.
Yeah. I haven't had a view. Everybody keeps telling me Maine is so beautiful, but I haven't seen it. I just see fog every day.
This is why you have to do the AT twice, because the bits you miss first time are often nice the second time.
Well, I think I'll just come back and section hike.
Yeah, there's that. Okay, well, look, I'm glad we were able to catch up, and you're kicking it now. You could be finished in about, I don't know. Have you got a date in mind when you're going to finish?
Well, we had always planned like August 31st, just so I'd have buffer days. But I think we're kind of thinking like September 2nd we should be done.
Okay.
Kind of just depends on the weather again. If we get bad weather, But yeah, we've been doing longer miles lately. So.
And also, you don't really want to go up Katahdin on a weekend.
No, not really.
And the 2nd is a Monday, I believe, which is Labor Day, I think. Yeah. So that might be a good day to do it. Okay. Well, look, I'm glad we called up, and I'm away next week, so I'm actually not going to catch up with you virtually till you finish. So I was hoping to recall people on September the 2nd for that week's show. If you finish that day or even the next day, we'll record, and that will be part of the catch up for all of you in that week's show. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Great. Good talk to you, and enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
You as well. And I hope you have a great time on the trail.
Of course. When would I not?
Yeah. Georgia's beautiful. I love Georgia.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing it in August. All right, then. I'll speak with you soon. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Cheers then.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I think Anita just gave us a perfect example of taking your time to enjoy the views when you have them. She had a clear day on Franconia Ridge, yet for much of the presidentials she was socked in. I, too, had a crappy run through the presidentials the first time, yet I was blessed the second time with a crystal clear couple of days, even on Mount Washington. So take those views when you have them. And Moxie is realising how lucky we all are to get as far as she has. Her body's standing up to it and, touch wood, she should be able to make it to the end. I think we all get that gratitude, especially when we hear of others not being so lucky. Thanks, as ever, goes to our awesome donors. This week, monthly donors are Betty McEnany, Michael Gaasch, Melanie Swisher, Sharon James, Sean Deb Wiley, Ann Pickin, Emmanuel Bravo Ramos, Kevin Weidman and Brian Alsop. Philip Pierce gave us a nice donation as well. Thanks to all of you. You know how grateful I am. Now, Michael Gaasch is chatting with us from just outside a shelter. Here's Michael.
Morning, Steve.
Hey, Michael, how are you?
I'm fine. Standing here in the rain.
Oh, dear. You're not actually just standing there in the rain. Please tell me.
No. I walked out from the shelter. It's sprinkling. It's fine.
Okay. You're off trail, and we haven't spoken for 2 weeks now. So you were off trail for a few days because you had some rain. So how bad was it?
It was pretty tumultuous. I was very, very lucky because I've met some prior military on the trail, a gentleman and his wife, Mark and Leslie, and I walked into Cornwall and Cornwall Bridge, and they actually picked me up, and we went to I can't remember the town in New York, and we actually stayed in a hotel for 2 days because it rained so much that the next day it started clearing up, and we were at the top of the mountain. I looked over, and they had waterfalls coming off the top of the mountain. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of water out there.
So there's no problem with getting water. Now you're back on. There's no problem getting water, I presume.
None at all. I mean, it's some of it's got a lot of tannin in it, and the trail agents have been really good about leaving water caches out. So, yeah.
You said in your note to me that you met a bunch of trail angels in Connecticut. Is that unusual for most states in the last couple of states?
I'll tell you what, I have met more trail angels in Connecticut and Massachusetts than I did in the whole South.
Good Lord, that's surprising.
Yeah.
Are they supplying water? Are they supplying, the whole thing of hiker feed as well?
No, water and sodas. I mean, I came down off of Bear Mountain in Connecticut, and there's a parking lot there, and they had 2 gigantic barrels, thermoses of ice cold water. So that was nice. Awesome. And then I got to the road there in Great Barrington after walking through all the swamp and all the mosquitoes. And I was really tired towards the end of the day, and lo and behold, there's 2 ice chests there, and opened up, and I said, these are probably empty. They were full of Cokes and sodas and
what a find!
Yes, it was awesome.
Yeah, I bet it was. Yeah, and obviously the 2 days of intensive rain. We've had it down south as well. In fact, throughout the whole country on the east, I guess.
Right.
How impactful was it for the trail itself, though? Once you got back,
a little bit more mud, some blowdowns, but not too bad. I think the biggest benefit was there's more water out here now because, like I said, in New York and Pennsylvania and everything, it was super, super dry, and we were really depending on water caches. Not so much anymore.
That's nice, though, isn't it? There's one part of your day you don't have to worry about, I'm sure. And of course, though, if the rain continues, you're going to have some tricky stream crossings, obviously, in Maine.
Right. The very first day I started back, my trail agents took me to where I got off at, and I walked about a quarter of a mile, and the stream was so swollen I had to actually walk back, go down the road, and then walk up a dirt road just to get back to the trail because I couldn't cross the stream.
Wow, blimey. So where are you now, Michael? Where are you right now?
I am actually 11 miles south of Dalton, Massachusetts.
Oh dear, it's getting exciting times. No, you'll get into the real meat of the trail, I'm sure. And are you enjoying Massachusetts so far?
You know what? Believe it or not, Massachusetts has been my favorite state. I love.
Oh, really? In what way? Why is that?
I think it's really, really pretty. Going up Race Mountain, that ledge along there was probably the prettiest view I've seen on the entire trail so far.
And have you had decent weather? Apart from the storm that came through, has the weather warmed up again?
It has. I mean, it's rained yesterday and today. We left Duck Pond yesterday, and Duck Pond is a no-miss place. Everybody needs to stop at Duck Pond. That was amazing. Well,
I think Sloggy, did Sloggy already tell us about Upper Duck Pond? Tell us about your experience there.
So I did a 16-mile day, and I got there, and there were like 3 Trail Magic places along the way, like an AT stand you can get sodas at and everything. But I got there, and I was like, man, this place is going to be full because there's a lot of southbounders now coming through. And I got there, and there was a bunk for me, and they had cold water and gave me a cup of coffee, and yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, and is that where they do that's where they do the breakfast, isn't it?
It is.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So you're now in the final straight, as it were. I know you still got hundreds of miles to go. How are you feeling about it being over? Are you starting to think of Katahdin yet, or are you just sticking with where you are now in the next couple of days?
I am sticking with where I'm at now in the next couple of days. I mean, I'm still looking ahead a little bit. It's just like one of the guys that's in his 20s that's actually yo-yoing. He's already summited Katahdin, and he's on his way back. I will pass him today. His name is Grape. Really nice kid. Really nice kid.
Wow, that's awesome, isn't it? It's funny actually. When I was doing my first hike 10 years ago, when I got to about where you are now, about Massachusetts, I started to dream about Katahdin, and I hadn't done it the whole trip. But once it gets in your head, it's difficult to shake. I tell you. Yeah,
at the shelter last night. The shelter I'm at right now. There's a couple in there that have already hiked it, and then they were talking about Katahdin and the 100-mile wilderness. I'm actually looking forward to getting to the 100-mile wilderness.
Oh, yeah, what's that?
Just, that whole stretch, very few people. It's very quiet and, a lot of solitude.
So is that because you're finding too many people on the trail at the moment with the southbounders and the northbounders in the bubble you're in?
Yes. I mean, I like people. I like people. I just don't like large groups, and the groups are getting bigger and bigger.
So in your shelter now, how many are there now?
11.
Are you actually staying in shelter? Are you staying in shelters or by shelters? Camping by shelters.
If it's raining, I'm going to stay in the shelter because I don't want to carry a wet tent. If it is now raining, I'll put up my tent.
That's something you have to get used to, isn't it? The snoring in shelters and people turning over and nudging into you in the middle of the night.
Well, after being in the Army for many years I was in, I could do that. It's not too difficult to sleep when somebody's snoring.
Oh dear, that's funny. Well, look, I'm glad you're still enjoying it by the sound of things, and you're just still having a good time. The solitude is real in the 100-mile wilderness, so I'm sure you'll appreciate that. But I think you'll also have feelings of regret when it starts getting towards the end that it's actually going to be over. Have you started thinking what are you going to do after this?
Well, I kind of already know because my friend who was a physician was also worked at the same hospice I worked at. he's retiring this year, and he's my age, and he asked me if I would go do the El Camino with him next year, and I said, sure.
Oh.
So that's what I'm going to do. And I will probably call you up and ask you about things on the El Camino.
You know you're welcome to that anytime. Okay, mate. Well, look, good to talk to you. What I'm going to do, I'm away next week. I'm on the trail myself next week. I'm doing the approach trail and the first 500 and the first 30 odd miles to Neil Gap, or 27 miles, whatever it is to Neil Gap. That's all. Just do 4 or 5 days. But so I'm going to put out a show next week. So I'd like to, the week after, I want to catch up with all of you in one show. So we'll talk about that nearer the time. But good to talk with you. Glad you're enjoying it, and keep on trucking, okay?
Yep. And you know, my buddy Chopsticks, he's going to try to come back. He's having surgery tomorrow, and he'll recover. And he's planning on coming to do the 100-mile wilderness with me.
Oh, that's nice. I actually saw your wife posted, I think, on your behalf and mentioned that. So that's good news. And so hopefully he'll get himself sorted. Great. He needs to rehabilitate, doesn't he? Because the 100-mile wilderness ain't for sissies, let me tell you.
No.
Okay, man. Right. Take it easy, okay?
Thanks, Steve. You have a great day.
Cheers, man. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I love hearing those sounds of a shelter packing up and moving out. I could have edited them out, but I chose to keep them in to feel a bit of that atmosphere. Michael seems to be a happy warrior, doesn't he? And he's determined to get there. I hope I get the chance to interview him and all the others when he's on top of Katahdin. Finally today, in Emily Leonard's book Happy Hiking, I split the Smokies chapter into 2, with the bit that takes us to Gatlinburg today. Then the second half will be next week. And I'll see you next week. Chapter 9. The Smokies. The day's end brought us to Molly's Ridge shelter. Tenting is permitted in the Smokies only if the shelter is full. The GSNP had lots of rules. I suppose it was to save the integrity of the outdoor experience, but their shelter rules were awful. All through hikers have to pay for a permit to traverse the Smokies. The rules say you must stay in a shelter. Shelter spots can be reserved by section hikers who get first priority, and the last through hiker to arrive must surrender his or her spot to the hiker with a reservation. So, as a through hiker, if I am the last through hiker to arrive and the shelter fills up, I must surrender my spot to a hiker with a reservation. Which means I must pack up my belongings and set up outside, no matter what time it is. I understand not wanting to spoil the wilderness with overuse, but this isn't fair for through hikers. Many through hikers opted to set up their tents upon arrival, hoping the shelter would in fact fill up. But rangers regularly patrolled the Smokies, so setting up outside while the shelter still had space available was a risky business for anyone who wanted to avoid a fine. The worst day on the trail so far was followed by the best day on the trail so far. I started bright and early, not having to wait for anyone. I was on my own agenda. I left the shelter by 7:50 a.m, which made for my earliest start after a night spent in the woods. It felt so great. The day didn't claim any noteworthy events. It was just a serene walk in the woods with beautiful weather and beautiful views. The terrain was very interesting. It wasn't the same old winter-killed, dull forest I'd been hiking through. It was changing from dormant, sparsely leaved trees to more dense evergreens. Partridge or ruffed grouse were abundant. I began hunting early in life, since my dad carried me on a pack basket. For just as long I've heard the sound partridge make when they fly off. I will never become immune to that sound. They make 2 distinctive noises. The first is the drumming created when the male strikes his wings against his chest or a log. Drumming is used by the male as a means of courtship. He relies solely on this non-verbal display to alert females in the area that I am here. It starts slowly, a low sound you can feel as well as hear. Thump, 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 thump. It can be heard a long way off. The second sound is so startling it will send you into fight or flight mode, no matter how many times you've heard it before. When the partridge feels a predator has come just a little too close, he takes to flight as fast and rapidly as he can, beating his wings hard and loud. This flushing sounds almost like a machine gun and is sure to pierce the nerves of the most placid person, sending them over the edge. The day's wilderness offerings were gorgeous sunshine and an endless supply of those sounds. I only wished I could have seen a partridge. I also took a nap. Napping is my favourite activity, and I was not getting the chance to do it as much as I'd hoped. Now I was solo and was getting ready to take a break. I rounded a corner, and straight up ahead 2 other hikers were lying on the ground with their feet propped on a log, soaking up the sun. How perfect, I thought, and I asked if they minded company. More the merrier, was their reply. So I stuck my poles in the ground next to theirs, undressed my feet, added them to the log, and reclined for a little nap. Derek Nobb's shelter was home for the night. I arrived just ahead of Carl and Walking Man, and it was already a full house. While we cooked our dinners on the shelf on the side of the building, we were pelted with driving hail. The minuscule overhang did little to protect us from the assault. It was short-lived, and we carried on with our evening duties. As more hikers arrived, one particular person took it upon herself to move other people's gear in order to make room for several weekenders who held reservations. She felt she needed to stand up for the newcomers who were younger and inexperienced. Well, that was the wrong thing to do with me around. My name was Black Bear for a reason. I tend to be very protective of my stuff. The list of hiking not-to-dos includes don't mess with others' things. I stopped her before she continued her actions. I mean, come on. She was dragging hikers' air mattresses across a dirty, splintery wooden floor. It was a great way to puncture them. Also, hikers have their own routine and order of business. Mess that up and they're apt to forget or lose something. I explained that, and I understood she wanted to help the young kids, but she needed to find the owners of the gear and let them move it themselves. April Fool's Day was nothing foolish at all. It was more like a Halloween treat with no trick. It was even more magnificent than the day before. I was not sure if it had to do with the better weather and terrain, which always helped, or a mix of things. For one thing, I was beginning to change and adjust on the trail, becoming one with it. Andrew had been gone for 3 days now, and other than leapfrogging and meeting up with Walking Man and Carl at night, I was a solo hiker. As much as I'd enjoyed Andrew and Mozzie, I must have let his unhappiness spill over onto me. It wasn't his fault. He had never once complained. I can sometimes feel energy from others. Sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse. Now that I was alone, I was feeling free. My hike began about 7:45 a.m. I hadn't taken too many steps when I heard another partridge drumming in the distance. I'd love to actually see one, I said to myself. It wasn't more than a few minutes, and I flushed a bird who was sitting on the side of the trail. It was so much fun to ask and then to receive. I think that was happening more and more. I would have a random thought, and then later, that thought would come to fruition. At the beginning of my hike, I'd been on the trail a few days and was getting irritated with my electronics and my charging cables. I had 4, one each for my InReach, iPhone, GoPro and charging cell. I said to myself, remember to get a couple of twist ties from a bread bag next time you're in town. But when I was in town, I didn't think anything of it. Forgot, actually. That night I was checking for debris in the area where I wanted to set my tent, and I found a large green twist tie. It was long enough to cut, giving me the 2 twisties I had mentally requested. On purpose, a fellow hiker who starred in the Appalachian Trail documentary Walking Home had a similar find. He was in need of a pair of tweezers. In town he got out of the vehicle, and on the ground between his feet was a brand new pair of tweezers. The trail provides. The terrain changed drastically, starting out at 4,900 feet just south of Sam's Gap in North Carolina and ending at Mount Collins Shelter at 5,970 feet. The first 10 miles were pretty much uphill until we reached Clingman's Dome, the highest point on the Appalachian Trail at 6,655 feet. The trail is never just uphill or just downhill though. When we covered such distances in a day's hike, there were always pointless ups and downs, puds, that got in the way. The forest changed even more from the wintry dead forest with bare hardwood trees to a magical dense evergreen forest, complete with the smell of fresh spruce, pine and hemlock. It was like having my own aromatherapy treatment without the high cost. Fruit Smoothie and Pumpkin Butt, a brother-sister pair from Massachusetts, appeared from a side trail when I was taking a rest at Clingman's Dome. I was still at the bottom of the tower waiting to take on the mass of tourists, not my favourite thing to do. I'd met the duo days earlier, and they were becoming consistent faces in my ever-growing hiker family. I asked them where they were coming from since they showed up using a different trail from what I'd used. They informed me it was the AT. I asked if they'd used a Blue Blaze trail. Nope, it was the AT. I soon realised I had misread the signs somewhere and had taken a wrong turn. The guidebook even warns of possible confusion, and I still got it wrong. I'd taken a side trail to the tourist parking lot, then walked up the very steep and crowded pedestrian road to the top. It was like a zoo, and I was the animal. Hundreds of people were there to access the observation tower. Everyone was in their designer street clothes, all happy and fresh, smelling like cologne and dryer sheets. Not one person had a bag larger than a small fanny pack. I received many strange looks as I made my way through the crowd with my dirty clothes and pack. I should have held out a cup. I felt bad for one young boy who was with his parents and sister. I'm not sure why they were out hiking in designer clothes, but they were. At least the trail was easy. It's always easy close to tourist traps. They were on the trail I thought was the AT, and since it was so easy, I should have known better. The young boy was about 5, and he just wanted to be a boy. He wanted to run, jump, and make noise. The mum made him hold her hand, and she actually said, "Hush, we're outside, so you have to be quiet." Really? In what world did she grow up? I did not let the news of missing a small section of trail bother me, since I had done it in error and the alternate route I took was actually longer. The worst part was the people. It was the most uncomfortable feeling to be unexpectedly thrown into a huge crowd. I did all I could to not have a panic attack. I just wanted to get back into the woods. But first, we needed to climb the tower. This wasn't the usual tower we were accustomed to seeing. This one had a ramp the width of a one-lane road that spiralled up to the top of the observation area. There was nothing to fear here except the masses of people on this opening day of Clingman's Dome. No wonder it was so busy. The view was stunning, with sunshine, bright blue skies and white fluffy clouds. We were very blessed. It's rare to have such a view from the top. The view might have been grand, but the cell service was almost impossible. I was supposed to meet a trail angel, Connie. She had reached out to me before I even began my hike and offered to put me up for a night midway through the Smokies at Newfound Gap. She finds hikers on trail journals and offers help. Bruce had even dropped off a food box for me at her house. Jimmy and I believe were also going to be in the area. But without cell service for the past 3 days to keep everyone updated, I didn't know if anyone would be there when I arrived the next day. Wild fruit smoothie, pumpkin butt and I sat in the sun enjoying a rest. Carl arrived. The 4 of us sat on the concrete ledge of the lower ramp and shared our snacks. It was nice to share. Eating the same thing day in and day out gets boring. I'd made it a point not to eat other people's food because I didn't know them or their habits. But the more time I spent with certain hikers, the more I relaxed and was more comfortable with them, trusting their hygiene. Sickness is a big deal on the trail, and I did all I could to avoid it. After our R&R and calorie intake, we headed for the trail. This time I went the right way. Carl waited for Walking Man. He was so good to his dad. Carl could have hiked on and met up with his dad at the end of the day, but he wouldn't do that. Each would hike their own pace, but they'd meet up for snack, water and lunch breaks. They looked like they had a really great relationship. It wasn't until later that I learned they were just getting to know each other. Still no service at Mount Collins Shelter. I was able to send Bruce a satellite message through the inReach asking him to contact Connie, Jimmy and I Believe. I decided I would stay with Jimmy and I Believe instead of Connie, whose home was almost 2 hours away. It was so nice of Connie to invite me, but my friends were staying closer to the trail. I didn't want to spend too much time driving. I only had 5 miles to cover in the morning to Newfound Gap, and I hoped someone would be there for me. I was a little worried about the lack of communication, but not nearly as concerned as I had been when I couldn't reach Bruce back at the NOC. I felt it would all work out. Was that a sign of becoming patient? Couldn't be. Patience and my name have never been used in the same sentence. Did I mention that day was the best day on the trail? Even better than the previous? Easter was in 3 days, making the current day Holy Thursday, also known as the Last Supper. Holy Week is a very important celebration in the Christian faith. Christmas marks the coming of our Saviour into the world, but the Easter season seals the deal for our redemption, with Jesus dying on the cross. I hadn't attended Mass since I had left home. Until this Holy Week, I didn't realise how much I would miss it. Our very small parish at St Leo's Catholic Church in Howland, Maine, is like family. I grew up in that church, made my confirmation there, got married there, and our boys and Bruce also made their sacraments there. The congregation is mostly older. It's like having an unlimited supply of parents and grandparents to share advice and comfort you when you need it. Everyone knows everyone. Today I would miss Holy Thursday Mass, the beginning of a Mass marathon with the other services on Good Friday, Easter Vigil and Easter morning. I didn't always attend all 4 services growing up, but after having a family of my own and growing deeper in my faith with Bruce, attending all of Holy Week's services has become very enriching. I would be okay though. I knew missing church while I was out on the trail was not going to be the end of my salvation. God knows what's in my heart. I've heard many people use that very excuse for never attending church. A similar excuse might be, I don't have to go to church to love God or be a Christian. I never understood that. It's like trying to take a bath without getting wet. But I did know that my short absence was not going to hurt my relationship with God. As a matter of fact, I spent more time in prayer while hiking the AT than when I was at home. After all, Jesus himself also retreated to the desert and mountains for our alone time to draw closer to God. No church services were in the near future, but I was still blessed with Trail Magic twice, all by 10:30 a.m. The first was compliments of Elizabeth. She had her SUV backed into the parking lot with the hatch open. The trail exited the woods onto a grassy area abutting the parking lot. It then skirted the lawn a few yards before disappearing back into the woods. I helped myself to some vanilla bean flavoured almonds and water. It was a chilly morning, and one look at Elizabeth had me thinking of home. She was dressed head to toe in LL Bean clothing to keep her warm as she tended to hikers. The second Trail Magic was at Newfound Gap. When I arrived, there was no Connie or Jimmy and I believe. But there was a pickup truck with its cap opened and a full spread of yummy food for hikers to enjoy. Several other hikers were filling up on the morning magic. Our trail angels were Bernie and Beth, a married couple. Beth saves her tip money for the year and buys hiker supplies and food with it. They spend their anniversary week at Newfound Gap each year, feeding hikers and catering to them until the money runs out. My friends showed up, and so did Connie. She brought my food box. That was so nice of her. I was just expecting to forfeit it and then resupply in Gatlinburg. Connie was leaving for a trip. Her itinerary had changed, and it ended up that it was better for her not to host me that night. Things always seem to work out for the best.